Now, anybody who's ever read A Walk to Remember or The Notebook or watched the film adaptations of both know what fate, romantic tragedy, or triumph is. Well, it takes a maestro of the pen to weave that kind of spell and leave us breathless from cover to book cover.
Gracing the show this morning is best-selling author Nicholas Sparks himself and Sandra Padilla, purchasing director for National Bookstore. It is an honor to have you in the Philippines, Nicholas, and thank you for joining us. Sandra,
We're very excited to have him here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
This is super. What a treat, really.
It really is. I mean, when they said that you were going to stop by the show, I said, "Oh, come on, stop kidding, stop kidding around."
He's here. It's real.
I know.
I couldn't believe it when we saw
excited.
him. And
Thank you for bringing him out here.
Well, I mean, the reception has been quite surreal since you walked out of the airport.
Yeah.
People have really kind of just welcomed you because you have done such a great job of getting into people's hearts. I mean, through your words and through your stories. How has your time in Manila been so far?
Oh, it's been a lot of fun. I've met a lot of great people. Of course, it's very busy. Do a lot of media appearances. I've got an event today, a book signing today. But even despite technically not meeting the fans yet, I don't know, I've probably taken 200 pictures inside, 200 books or 300 books or something like that.
Are you surprised that you're as popular as you are here?
A little bit, yeah. I'm always surprised. I'm surprised in the U.S., to be quite frank. For the most of my life, the vast majority of my life, I'm just at home. I'm working in my house. I'm a writer. I don't consider myself a best-selling author or someone who's known around the world.
But you
are. But that's not how I'm dad, I'm husband, I'm the guy who goes up and works on a computer, and that's it.
But it's really crazy, I think, how the story of you even becoming a best-selling author happened. I mean, you had a track scholarship to Notre Dame, so you had a completely different dream about being an Olympian, even through track and field, and there was an injury that kind of opened the doors to you writing. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I was running was far and away the most important thing in my life, and I got injured. It was an overuse injury. It was an injury to my Achilles tendon. So I went home for the summer between my freshman and sophomore years at college, and the doctor said, "Oh, it's easy. If you want to run again, it's really easy. You just can't run for the next few months." I was like, "Oh my gosh," I was mortified. So I kind of went crazy. I had all this extra physical energy, and I could feel my dreams going up in smoke. And so my mom, she just said, "Look, don't just pout. Do something." I said, "What?" She said, "I don't know. Go write a book."
Go write a book.
And so I did.
Was it completely alien to you? Did you ever know or feel that you had any kind of talent?
Not until that moment. Absolutely not. I'd always loved reading. I was a good student, and I'd always loved reading. But until that moment, I'd never ever considered writing. And I wrote a novel at 19, then another one at 22. Neither of which were ever published. But years later, when it was time to write The Notebook, having these two experiences were really beneficial because I knew right then, I knew even before I wrote a single word that I'd finish the novel. So, and that takes a lot off your mind. A lot of people can start stories without finishing them. I knew I would do that.
And now, do you think it worked out to be beneficial for you to not have really known that you had this talent for writing, so that you kind of did just kind of gush out the story? Or
yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, there is something to be said for lack of inhibition. Just throwing it down on. I go much slower now. I mean, writing is a much slower, more painstaking process now after 17 books than it was even in the very beginning of my career. Even with The Notebook, it takes me longer now to write a novel because I try to keep raising the standards, keep doing new things.
What does the bestseller have up his sleeve this time? And it's a different set of pressure and
yeah, it is. What you want to do, I think, is one of the great joys of reading for me is to feel that the story's original, and then to have a little bit of a surprise at the end.
Right.
And yet, how do you do that if you've read everything I've done? How can I surprise you? I'm liable to bump one of the main characters off, so I can't surprise you that way. So maybe I surprise you one time by having them live, you see.
Right. Well, how do you surprise yourself? I mean, where do you pull this out from? I mean, it's a completely I can't put together the image of you being a track and field jock towards being, you're a romantic guy.
Yeah.
You're somebody who knows really how to tug at those heartstrings. Where do you pull your inspiration from?
As an author, you'll pull it from anywhere. These days, it's pretty much a logical process of what I haven't written recently, because again, I'm trying to keep it original. So if I haven't written a book about young people recently, I'll write one about young people. If I haven't written one with an element of danger, I'll write one of those. So I make these decisions, and then the creative process kicks in, and some combination of ideas feels right, and as you write it, you put it together slowly but surely.
Well,
it's a strange process.
Speaking of that process, you do have a new book out, which is why you're in the Philippines.
The Best of
for
Me.
The Best of Me. This story is a little bit different, I guess, from the Notebook and Dear John. It talks about what ifs.
Yeah, it's about the what ifs of life. It is like the Notebook. It's a little bit of a reunion story. These are two people. They fell in love in high school. Lives diverge when she goes off to college. They reunite 24 years later, at the funeral of an old friend. And, she's married now, she has 3 kids, she's a little unhappy. And it asks you the big what ifs. And in her case, it's what if I'd married the man I love as opposed to the man I thought was right for me. It's kind of like what would have happened if Allie would have married Lon, right? In the Notebook.
Right, that's right.
And then they get back together. Would she still then have felt the same about Noah?
What would have happened? I would have ended up with Noah. That's what would have happened.
Yes.
That would have been a great ending
Well,
on my end.
here's another what if. What if you answer some questions from Twitter and Facebook? We've got, I'm telling you, the minute the word got out that National Bookstore had brought you out here, our Twitter account just totally blew up, and we have questions coming out of our ears. Here's one of the many that we've got. What's your favorite book?
My favorite book, Einstein, The Life and Times.
Who wrote that one?
Yeah, that was, I don't even, Ron Clark. Ron Clark. I really like a good biography, and so probably my favorite books that I've ever read are biographies, whether it's a biography of Roosevelt or the biography of Einstein.
All right. Of course, Sandra, you're going to have to stock up on this book that Nicholas has just mentioned.
He reads 120 books a year.
Yeah,
At least.
I read that. 125 books a year. How do you pace yourself?
I'm one of those people who reads all the time. I have a book in the car, so the light turns red. Well, I read a page or two, and then the light turns.
There is that anti-texting law.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not anti-reading.
No.
So I'm one of those people. I will read all the time. Before bed, when I wake up. I read this morning probably 30 or 40, 50 pages before I started doing my stuff.
Wow, that's quick.
That's how I relax.
That's really wonderful. We've got some other questions I know that we need to get to as well. Do you experience writer's block?
Yes, every book, every day. Yeah.
What's the best way to get rid of that?
Sometimes if you know where you're going in a section or a chapter, you'll kind of work mentally backwards and say, okay, what happened right before this until you get to the point. A lot of times for me, a writer's block comes from the fact that I know that I'm doing something wrong subconsciously, and so it's like a subconscious break. So what I'll do is I'll say, well, where did the writing start getting tough? 5 pages ago, 8 pages ago, and I'll go back to that and then take the story in a different direction.
It's nothing like a good long run is about to clear the brain.
Yeah, I know.
A nice cold beer.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Well, okay, we've got another question here from Karen Mercado. She asks, how come a character always dies at the end of the movie adaptations of your novels?
Because I'm heartless, because I'm mean. No. I try to write stories that bring you through all of the emotions of life, and unfortunately, sadness is part of the emotion of life. Yeah, and if you don't include it in the story almost feels unreal. And really, what I'm trying to do is write a story.
Have you ever thought about exploring? I mean, I hate to pigeonhole you as a writer of a particular type, but do you want to explore other genres?
Not necessarily, because in the genre I work in, I can add other elements. In Safe Haven, my novel from last year, I was able to add a suspense thriller element to it.
Yeah.
In The Guardian, it was much more of almost a danger element as well. So you're allowed to put other elements in. In this book, there's a supernatural element in it. So you're allowed to do a lot of different things.
That's right. I've heard you say before that you don't want to get boxed into a title of being a romance novelist.
No, I don't. I because it's semantically incorrect, and as a writer I'm big into words, so that's not what I do. A romance novel is an entirely different genre. It's about romantic fantasy, and it usually ends happily ever. It's much closer to a Cinderella, which is everybody knows the story of Cinderella, and there's a place for that. It's not, though, what I do. I do something closer to tragedies, Romeo and Juliet. I'm not saying I write like Shakespeare, but that genre would be closer to the genre I do.
Why do you think Nicholas' books have been as popular as they have with readers? I mean, you obviously purchase books from all over. Why do you think his books are so popular?
He is our best-selling author by far. He has this is the 17th book, so ever since 1996, he's been a consistent bestseller. As someone who read the book,
as a fan and as a fan and as
I
a
think,
professional, yeah.
no one can. You can't help but cry and get your heart your heart wrenched. With the story that he's telling.
That's why there are so many. Specifically in this story, it does explore the question of what if. I was just curious. I mean, when you do write certain things in your books, does your wife ever ask you, or kind of have an eyebrow raised, like, what was your inspiration with the What If book? Are you thinking about your
drawing
what
from any
ifs, or-
actual experience there?
Because I do hear that you have kept in touch with your ex's parents.
Yeah, we're still very close. It was funny that question of what if it never came up until recently when I was on my tour. My wife, she goes, "Hey, wait a minute, why are we talking about the what ifs? What are you thinking, honey?" Don't worry. It's just a common. I think this is something that's very common. There's the what ifs when you hit your 40s, because you're at that point in life where in your 20s, 30s, you think you can still do anything. In your 50s, you're not sure it's worth it. But in your 40s, you're like, I still can, but is it worth it? And you wonder, what if I'd taken a different career path? What if I stayed back home instead of moving away? What if I made different decisions all along the way? So that's really what I'm trying to explore here. And as to your question, I'm still real close to my ex-girlfriend's family. My ex-girlfriend calls me the ex-boyfriend that never went away. When we visit Sacramento, which is where I grew up, I'll bring my wife and my 5 children, and instead of staying at my brother's house, I'll stay at my ex-girlfriend's parents' house. My ex-girlfriend from 25 years ago.
That's so
very
interesting.
unusual.
They're great people, though. I mean, that's it.
You're
That's a story right there.
Bye, bro. I'll see you later. I'm gonna go hang out with.
He's never understood it. I lost my
It's a great
parents.
ending, though. That's
It
great.
is. I lost my parents when I was younger, and they almost like my parents. I mean, they ended up paying for my wife and I our honeymoon. I mean, we're very close.